Hello, guys. Welcome back. It's me, Italo, again from the Coaching Direction. As always, every Sunday we bring new content to you, new videos or live. If you not already know me, I'm the founder of the Coaching Direction, and I'm here with Siddiq, one of the directors for the Coaching Direction as well. Hello, Siddiq. How are you?
Hi, Italo. Good to be with you again. I'm looking forward to today's session as well.
Exactly. Today we are talking about how to start something new, the anxiety for beginners, and then again the lockdown is starting to melt, and the things start to go back to working places, or the market start to reopen, and there could be an opportunity for someone's. And then as well, what to do now in this new beginning after lockdown, after the coronavirus lockdown that is about to come. So Siddiq is once again here with us to discuss about a little bit about it. But before we start to jump into it, a little bit of our background. Siddiq, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I mean, my background has been in law, so I've been qualified as a lawyer since 2003. So I still enjoy doing that, but I've always had for quite a few years, had an interest in self-development. So since about 2009, I've been involved with self-development in one way or another. 2019, I became a certified life coach, and currently I'm studying NLP as well. So it's interesting to bring these different disciplines together, and I'm quite excited about today's topic as well, because our theme for this month is about reintegrating back into society, and I think it's quite an interesting topic about how you deal with change, and it goes well with that. And given the sort of transitional phase that we're in at the moment, I think it'll be an interesting topic to discuss today.
Definitely. As well, a little bit of my background. I have a business degree that I got in university. I started to start coaching in 2017, and then now we are here with the Coaching Direction group. And I believe I'm still working in banks and on the official who do business academy or business university goes through, but still enjoying a lot of this tool that is coaching, that I found is amazing to develop people and develop things. And every single challenge you have to work out yourself and adapt yourself to go and face this challenge. And then coaching is something that's it's amazing tool that we can use to face all these challenges and do little by little, as I say, small steps, small wins, great achievements. Small steps, in a long journey. It is what is that about. And yeah, as well, let's go to the topic today. That is this need how to start something new, overcoming beginner's anxiety. And just before we started, I think everybody's know the feeling about want to do great since the beginning, and then it can create anxiety, a lot of planning that overwhelms your mind. So this is pretty much what we're going to clear today and talk about it. And anything else you want to add it before we start, Siddiq?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's important to dedicate a whole session to this topic, because it is actually quite a big thing. And part of the theme that we're going to go into in further detail during the course of today's session is about how we change our mindset from being children to adults, where as children, we're very open to trying new things. We have that sense of excitement. And as we get older, it's more a question of how we look to other people that becomes more important, which hence the heading, how to start something new, but overcoming beginner's anxiety, because that's a big part of the problem. And I think, yeah, it's an interesting topic given the situation we're in at the moment. And hopefully just some of the things that you touched on, we're going to open that up and go through the various stages, how your mind processes new information and new skills, and help people to unravel that process and just understand the process a bit more.
Yeah, good. So let's jump on. Let's do it. Right. Power of the habits.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just about the power of habits and how the subconscious mind works. First of all, our mind, in a way, if you would put it on a piece of paper or try and picture it, there's two parts to it. One is what we call our conscious mind, and the other part is our subconscious mind. Now, our conscious mind is the things that we're actively thinking about in that moment, i.e., we're having to be quite proactive. It needs our full attention. But the thing is, generally speaking, the human mind can only process between about 5 and 9 things at a time. So that's still quite a lot, but there's going to be a limit to what it can do, given the amount of information that we have to process on a regular basis, particularly with regard to more complicated things where there's quite a complicated process in place. If we had to think and process all of those things actively or all of the time, we wouldn't be able to cope. And hence, that's why we have this subconscious mind to fall back on. Now, I thought it'd be a good idea to give an analogy here. So a subconscious mind is a bit like a supercomputer with a large hard drive. So you can have a hard drive on your computer, but if you haven't loaded things on there, that hard drive is just sitting empty, doing nothing. It's not really helping you. So it's important to actually make good use of it. The analogy I like to use quite a lot, as you're aware, quite like playing role-playing games, like using games consoles. And I think it's a good analogy to use because I've recently purchased a PS4, I can mention that to you, and it's got a large memory on it. It's got up to 1 terabyte of memory. Now, that starts off completely empty, and the way I use that device will depend on what I have saved onto it. Now, just to give an example, I bought a game recently, and that's got about 100 gig worth of data on it, and it took me almost a day to actually save that onto there. However, once it's saved on there, then I can now play that game whenever I want to. I don't have to reload it every time. So the point is, although putting the programs in takes some time and effort, once it's on there, you can then recall it whenever you want to. And to give another example, probably something that I think almost everybody will be familiar with is our mobile phones. We have a plethora of apps on our mobile phone, and it may take a little while to actually look at the app that we need, save it. Like I said, if it's a paid app, you may need to pay for it as well. But once it's on our phone, it's there for us to access whenever we want to. And the point is, all of those apps will not be running all of the time, but once they're saved on the phone, we can use them whenever we want to. So if you think about it, the devices that we've created are really just a replication of our mind. And it's a shame that we don't make full use of our own brains, which are really powerful tools and can really help us in life. So I think it's just important just to understand the difference between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. And most of us don't really make full use of the subconscious mind because we don't fully appreciate its ability and its significance. And if we understand that analogy, I think it's easier for us to actually just learn new things, to understand once it's on there, we know what to do. That process will just play itself. It will become a habit, and it will make it easier for us. So just moving on to the next point, our habits are essentially programs which are written into our subconscious mind. So just in the way that once I've saved a game onto my computer, I can use it whenever I want to. The same way as once I've saved an app onto my phone, I can use it whenever I want to. Once I've created a habit and it's saved into my subconscious mind, I can recall that whenever I need to. And that I think is really important when you're trying to learn something new. The other thing is, some people tend to get, as they get older, set in their ways. Like, I've been doing this one way for a number of years, and I'm going to continue doing it that way. Just to give an example, I remember some time ago, I was asking somebody, I think they said that they had forgotten something when they went shopping. And I said, oh, well, why don't you use a list? And they said, oh, we've never used lists. And I was thinking, yes, but the fact that you've never done that isn't a reason for you not to do it now. And I gave the example that I use where wherever I realize I'm short of something, I have an ongoing shopping list on my phone, and I just add it to that list. And therefore, when I go shopping, I don't then have to think, okay, what do I need? I've got the list there. So I just need to go shopping. I've got the list on my phone. And once I've purchased something, I can take it off. So I just gave that as an example of, that's not how I always used to do something before I had a smartphone. But obviously, as technology improved, I've changed my way of doing things. So this is an important thing to understand, that we can also delete and change the programs that we've already written into there. We may have created them for a particular set of circumstances or a particular time, but if the surrounding circumstances have since changed, if we've got access to other technologies, other resources that enable us to do things better, we should always review those and see whether there's a better way of doing things. Now, if we're doing things in a particular way and it's working for us, then fine, we can make the decision to continue in that way. But we don't have to feel that that's the only way of doing things. And then just moving on, generally speaking, once you've been doing things for about 3 weeks, that way of doing things will become a habit. And last week I spoke to you about Ramadan, and you asked me some interesting questions, i.e., somebody who wasn't fasting, i.e., what time do you wake up? How do you manage things? How do you deal with hunger and thirst? And by that stage, it was the last week of Ramadan. And although those things seemed strange to me 3 weeks prior to that, in that moment, it was quite normal because I'd been going through that routine for 3 weeks. And it seemed normal for me to wake up early in the morning, to eat very early in the morning, not drink water during the day. For example, my normal routine, first thing I do when I wake up is to drink water. But once I got used to that during the fasting routine, that became my normal way of doing things. So I think that's a good example of how your habits can change. And it only takes a few weeks. And once you've worked on one habit, you can then work on another thing that you want to change about yourself. So perhaps if you've got any thoughts or questions on anything that I've covered so far.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing. I think this analogy about computers and the phone is pretty much so you have your storage. You cannot change your operating system if you have one, a branch that is human being is the one that have to stick it. But we can always change. We can always overcome something that is already there. You always try to develop something and then create as a habit, as you told you, like have something. Once you download it, it's there, so you can access. So this is the things that are run on the background. So even on your phone, even on your PC or anything like this, you have a lot of things that are running on the background that you're not even using a lot or not requesting, but they still running. It could take energy from you, could stress you in your background. But when it comes to information, it comes like just something that supports you. And then once you're aware about these things and create a habit, it's just amazing. It's just something that you is there that you can consolidate and have more robust knowledge or resources or things that you can access to once you download it. And I'm not quite sure how many terabytes we are able to until have to recycle. I hope it's a lot. My run memory, the short one for specifically in this model here is not really good. But I think it's really good when you know that you have an habit, like the guy with the list, that you can create something, a new habit to help you further. And a lot of people miss these small wins, miss these small things that can change little by little.
Think people,
great.
I think people underestimate what they're capable of, and I think part of it is because they don't fully understand what the brain can do. And I think just understanding this in itself will give people confidence to push themselves and really push themselves outside their comfort zones.
Yeah, right. Let's move on. On the 4 stages of progress.
Yeah. So I think this is something that I've covered in coaching. I think you're also familiar with as well. But a lot of people don't really sit down and understand this. You touched on it at the beginning, whereby people were looking for perfection at the outset, and I think that's quite unnatural, because if we look back at most of the things that we're actually good at, it's very rare that we will actually achieve perfection from the outset. Just to give you a few examples, in law, we have, when people are training, they will normally do 6 months in different seats. And sometimes I've spoken to some of the trainees through that process myself, where they've just stepped into, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just gave this analogy. Okay, well, how long were you doing that for? 6 months. How long have you been doing this for? Oh, 2 weeks. So I said, it's not a like for like comparison. Just make the comparison with where you were 2 weeks into the previous seat. And after you've done the full 6 months on here, then make a comparison, because you went through a process to get to where you were and get a certain level of confidence in that previous area, and give yourself that room similarly in this new area as well. Don't expect perfection from the outset. And another example as well, because I do, not so much now, but I have historically done a lot of classes at the gym, and hopefully I'll continue with that as well. And there was a particular girl I was speaking to, and she's quite a fit girl. She likes to stay active. And we were talking, me and another friend of mine, we did a particular class together, and we were asking her to come along. And she said, oh, well, I tried it once and I wasn't very good at it. So I said, oh, well, you should come about 3-4 times, and then you'll pick it up. You'll pick up the routines. And she said, oh yeah, but I like to be good at things. And again, I was just trying to explain to her that to get to where she was in terms of her fitness, she'd often obviously been through a process to get there. It's not something that happened overnight. And therefore, she's trying to adopt that same mindset for trying a different class, the moves she was not used to. A lot of it was based on martial arts moves, but that will take time to get used to. So again, I think it comes to this sort of beginner anxiety issue, which I'm going to cover here. So there's normally 4 stages to this process. Firstly, we have what we call unconscious incompetence and what we call blind spots, where we're not really aware of this and it doesn't really bother us, but sometimes it takes other people to make us aware of them. So when I did a lot of my self-development, this is something we were made aware of, things that we may be doing that may be holding us back, and other people can notice that we couldn't ourselves. And just to give you an example, let's say you're going to a performance or something and you see somebody performing and you might think, okay, that person's really good at what they're doing. You might see them singing or dancing or skiing, or it might be some sort of show, but that just might make you aware that actually that same activity I'm not very good at, and that might make you aware of it. And then that's what will then move you on to the next stage, thinking, oh, well, actually, the more you think about it, that person is good at it, I'm not. And the thing is, it's the next stage which tends to cause a lot of the problems, what we call conscious incompetence. Now, you're at the same level as you were before, but previously that thing didn't bother you because you never thought about it. But now you're very aware of it, saying that there's this thing that I want to be able to do well, but I'm not very good at. So just to give my own example, like the last few years I've taken up skiing. So again, you see other people doing something and then you try it yourself and you realize, actually, this is quite complicated. It's not something I can pick up straight away. I'm going to need to practice. And it makes you very aware of it, that somebody else is doing it well, I'm not, and you become rather self-conscious. And the problem is that when we're children, we're not really bothered about being good at things. We just enjoy the process, and we're very open to learning, and we can't necessarily, oh, that's that person, I'm different, because we've all been through that process. But as we become adults, just to give the example that I gave before, we're more worried about how we look to other people than whether or not we're enjoying the thing. And just to give the example, that girl said, oh, well, yeah, but I like to be good at things right at the beginning. She didn't really give her that opportunity to learn something new, develop. And I've no doubt that she would have been good at it had she started it and continued with it. And I think martial arts, I mean, I've done a lot of martial arts. I know you're into it as well. I think that's quite a good example where typically you get a lot of people who show that interest. After a few weeks, they leave. And there's always there's normally 3 categories of people. One is the people at the bottom who their turnaround is normally a few weeks. And then there's the middle group, which again, they come and go. And then there's sort of the elite group at the big top who'll be doing it for like 20 years or something. But that's something very common in martial arts, because once people start doing it, they realize they're not going to be able to beat somebody up just from doing a 1-hour class. They're going to have to train and have that discipline over months and years and gradually improve. And most people aren't willing to do that. But the point is, if you enjoy the process, then this is the most crucial stage. It's the most difficult. And one of the reasons is you're often in your panic zone where you're not feeling comfortable. And it's not even enough that you feel that you can do it. It's something completely new. Most of your life, you're probably used to doing certain things in the same way regularly, and it feels very uncomfortable doing something that you're not confident about, because I think as adults, we have an expectation that we need to be good at everything. So that's where people mostly fail. But I would suggest that learn to enjoy the process. If you can enjoy the process, you're not worried about how you look to other people, then that stage will be a lot easier. You're not going to feel panicked, and therefore gradually you're going to improve. And at some stage, you're then going to approach the third stage, which is what we call conscious competence. Now, it's still not a habit fully formed. It's not something you're automatically good at, but if you really focus and try, then you can do it. And again, just to give my example about skiing, it's like when I first started it, it was very much sort of panic zone. I didn't know what I was doing, but having a bit of practice on the shallower slopes, then I was able to actually, if I was focused, then I was actually able to do it. And this this stage also, it takes patience. It's not as bad as the previous stage, but you've got to stay with it. You've got to be fully engaged in that moment, thinking, look, I'm still learning this. These are the main things I need to focus on. And what normally happens if you're studying with a teacher, they'll normally tell you one or two things to work on. So for example, I've done Kendo for a number of years. Just for those people who don't know, it's based on Japanese sword fighting with a katana, which is probably one of the most complicated weapons to use. It's very, very technical. And what normally happens is they will they'll give you one or two things to work on gradually, and then once you've picked up those things, they'll tell you something else to work on. So for example, once you've got the basic movement of the sword in hand, they'll help you with your footwork, and then they'll help you with your movement and so on. So again, this is not the end of the process, but you, by this stage, you will have gained a bit of confidence, having seen the improvement in yourself. And the difference between this stage and the last stage is that if you focus on it, you can do it reasonably well. Yeah. But
Yeah.
eventually, you're going to hopefully get to this level, which is what we call unconscious competence, where you're in your comfort zone. And it's generally in that mindset where if you feel that it's something you can do with your eyes closed, it's pretty much become a habit. Now, although I said simple habits take about 3 weeks, if you're doing something more complex, it's going to take a lot longer. I mean, generally, they say if you want to become a master in something, it's going to take you between sort of 30 to 50 years to do that. For example, one of the sword masters about Kendo, he said that it took him 30 years to just master the basics of Kendo. And he said the next 20 years, he learned to fight with his spirit, and he learned to take it to the next level. So if you want to be really good at something, it takes that long-term investment of your time. So those principles are really embedded into your subconscious mind really well. But the point is, it's just a question of how long it takes. But at some point, you will get to that level of unconscious competence. It's something you feel that you could do with your eyes closed. You don't need to think about. Just like that game saved on your console, which you can just draw up whenever you want to. And just to give you an example myself, there's certain things that most people learn when they're children, but I didn't, because my parents brought me up in a different way that you have to be careful. So things such as cycling, swimming, and skiing, which lots of people learn when they're younger, I didn't. And a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I wanted to get into cycling because I could see everybody was doing it. There was a lot of safety being brought into London, and it seemed like a lot of fun. And I just made the decision, and I just had a conversation with somebody saying, look, I want to get into cycling. What do I need to do? And gradually I built things up. I purchased a bike, I practiced myself, then I joined a club, and gradually I built up my skills. And to be honest, yes, I was firstly thinking, look, I should know this already. But gradually I learned to just let that go, thinking, well, who says? I've got my life experience is unique to me. Somebody else may have learned it when they were young. I didn't, but that doesn't mean I can't learn it now. And the more and more with the years, I've really started enjoying it. And as I told you yesterday, I did about 50 mile cycle, and it's something I've been really enjoying. It just really making me realize that, in fact, I just need to go through that process. And I think having an understanding of that helped me. And again, I use the same thing for swimming as well. Again, something that most people learn when they're younger, but I didn't have the opportunity to. I then used that same process to overcome my fear, getting in the water, staying on the water cycle, and I really took the same approach with skiing. Every time for me feels like I'm pushing myself a bit more out of my comfort zone. But I just thought about it, thinking, okay, well, fine. Some people may have learned skiing when they were younger, but maybe if you live in the Alps, that's a normal thing for you to be doing every week. But I didn't grow up in the Alps, and therefore it wasn't a normal thing for me. But that doesn't mean I can't learn it now. And therefore, again, I'm still learning how to ski, but I've got the basics and I'm trying to improve still. But the point is, I've overcome that fear of how I look. I don't mind if I fall down, because for me, I'm just enjoying the process, enjoying the fact that I could learn a new skill, and just enjoy the process of being out there on the slopes, the experience of skiing, and just the whole atmosphere. So I think the crucial thing here is that you need to enjoy the feeling of being the beginner experience and making mistakes just as children do. And I always give this example because it just makes people laugh. So when children are learning to walk, just think how many times a toddler falls over. When they fall over, they don't start crying. Well, they may cry if it's painful, but they don't cry thinking, oh, I'm no good at this. What are people thinking of me? They just get up and start running again, because for them, they really just want to enjoy the process. They want to be able to walk themselves, get to where they want to go to. If it's the mummy, it's the toy. If it's a game, something shiny and sparkly, they have that mindset. And I think the key to this is to awaken that inner child within yourself, which you know has always been there, and then to use that to enjoy that whole process. So I don't know if you have any particular queries or comments on that.
No, we don't have a lot of time for questioning, but it's really interesting the way that the thing's set up. Unfortunately, we are not living in Matrix that we can like download everything in 15 seconds. It's like, okay, I know it. And even Neo, who is like the chosen one, was not a master just with information, had to get practice and everything. But yeah, no, nothing else to add. We just moving on. Let's go it on. Now it comes to the 3 zones, right?
So some of this I've touched on, so I'll try and move on a bit more quickly so we have some time for comments. So I spoke about this briefly about the comfort zone. This is pretty much so I think the point is that some of us want to stay in the comfort zone because it's easy, but my point is that if you're just staying in the comfort zone all of the time, your life's not going to be fulfilling. So Anthony Robbins speaks about the sort of 5, 6 values that all of us have, and one of them, he says, is variety. We all as human beings in our life need variety. If we don't have that variety, we're just going to get bored, and therefore if you're just doing the same thing in the same way all the time, life will just become really dull. I think as human beings, we need that idea of a new challenge and the feeling of accomplishment of having achieved something that we haven't previously. So I think you want to, although it feels good in the comfort zone, you want to move yourself out of there as much as possible. Now, the next zone is the stretch zone, and this is where most of your work will take place. It's uncomfortable, but it can be sustained with effort and persistence. So it's like that conscious competence stage where you have to focus and try. It's not comfortable and you have to push yourself, but you're not quite panicked. You feel that if you focus, then you can do it. And then the third zone is the panic zone, where basically you're really thinking, look, I can't do this. Just imagine you just standing, if you're going to a parachute jump for the first time, you're just standing there about to jump out. That's pretty much the panic zone.
I know that feeling. I did once.
I'd be interested to hear about that, but how you overcame that. But the point is this, that it's not something I'm sure you can elaborate on this, but you don't want to be standing in that position for too long. I think you need to make that jump to move yourself out of that zone, because it's not something that you can sustain for very long, but at the same time, you need to go through it to at least bring it down to the next level. So I think the technique that's really important, I think, is to alternate between the stretch zone and the panic zone. And that way, as I come on to the next point, the panic zone can become your stretch zone. So again, not so much now, but before and hopefully soon, I do a lot of classes at the gym, a lot of high intensity interval training classes. And the main focus of those classes is to have zone of moderate intensity and high intensity, and to alternate between the two. And the point is the high intensity phase you cannot sustain for a long period of time. It might be 30 seconds. Okay, let's go all out now. But because it's only 30 seconds, you prepared yourself, you're willing to give it everything. And there'll be reminders saying, okay, it's just 30 seconds. We've got 20 seconds left now, 10 seconds left. And then at the end of that, you'll be breathing hard, you'll be sweating, but then you know you can go back into that moderate intensity zone. The important thing is not to then stop completely. You always want to keep moving. So they have that this phrase called active recovery. When you move out of that intensity stage, you want to still be moving, staying active. You don't want to stop completely. And the point is, the more you do that, that same intensity zone, you can then sustain that for longer. And then or possibly go to a higher zone. And then that same phase, which previously, say a few months ago, maybe your intensity phase, will then become like your normal moderate pace. And so gradually you can the two of them will increase, and that's the benefit of alternating between the two. And the point is, what was previously your panic zone can become your stretch zone, and eventually your comfort zone. And whilst I was doing my coaching training as well, one of the exercises that we went through was to ask about a particular activity and which zone we were in. And then we were asked, I think you've done the same one. Okay, well, what if you had some sort of resource or somebody to help you? Would you still be in the same phase? And most people move down a stage, because moving on to my next point, if you can make effective use of resources and other people, then that thing becomes a bit easier, and you can then move down a phase. So just to give my example, I guess everybody is different, but for me, I'm not really into singing and karaoke. It's just not my thing. So one of the things that I had actually selected there was something for me that would be in my panic zone would be to actually sing a song on my own, even if it's with karaoke. But then I thought about an example. Some years ago, one of my friends, it was her birthday, and we went out, and she wanted to go for karaoke. I thought, fine, it's her birthday, she could choose. But she said she wanted everybody to take part, and I wasn't really that keen. And I think she picked up on that, but at the same time, I didn't want to let her down. So she said to me, no, I want to sing at least one song with you. So she said, you pick the song and we'll sing it together in a duet. And once she did that, it didn't seem as big a deal to me. And that's then what we did. I chose a song which I felt wouldn't be too embarrassing for me. And we sang it together, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It was no longer in the panic zone. It was started off in the stretch zone, and it was moving towards comfort zone, actually. So it's interesting, just a few things that you can do, a particular technique, using somebody else, or using a resource, or just doing things in a way that you're more familiar with. I quite like planning things in advance. So seeing the song in advance, thinking this is what I'm going to do, just made that process a bit easier. So yeah, that's a good technique that you can use to just bring the intensity level down a bit. I don't know if you have any questions. I've been interested to hear about your
skydiving,
jumping out of the plane. Yes, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. It's I think this is exactly what people have to have in mind. It's like your stretch zone is gonna stretch somewhere else, and this place they're gonna stretch to is the panic zone. So you're gonna create more space to stretch, and then after your stretch zone gonna give space to your comfortable zone to take over in a different places. And you definitely don't want to be in the door of the airplane looking down and freeze there. It's panicking, but if you jump in that, you're gonna be less than 2 minutes, you're gonna be in the ground. If the parachute works, if it don't work, it's gonna be even faster than that.
So if I could just ask you, what was the difference when you were standing in that plane about to jump out compared with once you had jumped out? What was the change in the feeling within you?
I was with the instructor, so I was in the front, and someone was
that's
back.
what normally happens. Yeah.
And then I was in the door, and the guy said, "Go to the door, put your feet halfway out, and look up." I put my feet halfway out, and I saw downside and just frozen. But then the guy said, "Look up," and I said, "Okay, I have to look up," but I was freezing. I was in panic because I'm afraid of heights, and I was like freezing. And then I let him. I leaned forward, and then we jumped. The first 3 seconds, I cannot remember. I was like just panicking, like, dude. And then I started to see what was happening, and the adrenaline hits in, and was feeling good, and the rush as well. I was like, oh my God, it's happening. And then after I started to enjoy it, because we're going to start like skydiving free. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm flying down, like, and getting really fast. But then I started to get used to it. And then the parachutes went up, and it works, thank God. I thank the guys and everything. And I was like, oh my God. No. And then have like the lift. No, it's not actually a lift, but you feel like a lift because of the parachutes. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And then I started to look like, okay, I'm flying. And it was really, really, really good. And then I definitely would like to go again. And then a friend of mine was doing a training to be able to jump without any structure and anything like this.
Okay.
Yeah, this is something might be interesting. Not now.
Mm.
I like the ground, but he says it come to this point like the first time I was okay. I have no, as you said before, unaware about my ignorance, and I say okay, now this is the challenge, and then I went straight through the panic zone and say, now I'm like, now I know that I don't know, but I know what happens. I would like to know more. So I'm like a little bit of my stretching zone now. That was my panic zone before, like I don't know what to do now. But yeah, let's keep on.
And the great thing is I can see the change in your body language. You speak about that, your excitement, your enjoyment. I can really tell that's something that, although it was firstly panic for you, it's now, the memory is now predominantly one of enjoyment and fulfillment.
But it was indeed, is a big, for me, is a big thing to face. Look at an airplane up above the clouds, and then you look it down and say, now I have to jump. Yeah. Okay, I know in theory it will be okay, but your body don't process this very well.
Yes.
And then it comes then to how to draw on your strength.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, you'll be familiar with a lot of this. It's a lot of what we do in coaching and some of the techniques that we can use. I think some of us just feel that we forget the things that we've achieved in our life, and we just focus on something new, thinking, oh, I can't do this. But the point is, if you can think about positive past experiences and achievements, that will really help. I mean, one of the things I do, again, I'm working from home at the moment, but in my office at work, I put up certificates, medals, awards around me just to remind myself of things that I've achieved. So, and some people often laugh about the fact this it's my hall of fame, but for me, it's really important because I understand that at work you're going to go through difficult. Yeah, but I think for me, it's just a reminder saying like, I've been through these difficult things in my life, and therefore when I come across difficult situations at work, I remind myself that something I can do. One of the things that I have on my wall at work is what I had in Kendo for the first time that I was involved with an actual sparring. It was my first time, and although it was quite difficult for me, not having done it before, it was quite an unusual experience because I had to actually fight 3 people in a row. I was just very unlucky in the way that the draw was held. But the point is, at the end of it, I actually got an award for how well I had actually done. And it's important for me to actually put that up on my wall because it reminds me that that's a stage when I was just starting out, and yet I kept persevering to the extent that I even won an award for that. Just the sheer sort of energy that I brought to the table, even from a beginner's perspective. And for me, that's something really important to have up on my wall, just to give me that reminder that perseverance can help, even if you're starting out as a complete beginner. So again, something we use a lot of coaching is looking at something that we've done in the past, looking at what worked, what didn't work, and how we could use those same skills that we've acquired in other areas in our life into the present circumstances. So a lot of the techniques that I've used in training as a lawyer, I've tried to bring those things into my coaching as well in terms of what works. So for me personally, I quite like working with a friend. I think doing things on my own for me personally can be difficult. So I like that, checking in with somebody I get on with well, I enjoy working with, and that works well for me. Setting deadlines as well, creating that importance rather than just thinking, oh, I'll get around to this when I have time. That's what's been successful for me working as a lawyer, setting deadlines, things get done. Therefore, I've brought that into my coaching work as well. And another thing that works for me personally is making a plan, having that advanced, making a plan, and then it focuses in your mind. Those are things that have worked for me in certain areas and I've brought into other areas. And there may be things that other people have done that works for them. They just haven't thought how they could bring that into a new situation. But quite often, those same things that worked well with your personality previously, there's no reason why they can't work again for something new. And I often ask this question, how could you, it's an interesting question because quite often when we see things in isolation, we think, okay, well, that's what we did in that situation, this is how we did this situation. But an interesting question is, what would happen if you combined two different things together and use that to create a successful strategy? It's a question people don't often ask themselves, because a lot of what we do is seen as in isolation, but gets people thinking in new ways of combining two separate things. So again, in terms of my coaching as well, just bringing together my knowledge of technology and my passion for life coaching, I think it works really well. Like I said, if you only dealt with those in isolation, they wouldn't be as effective. But I've learned a lot from my own experience as well. And this is a really big topic in itself, which perhaps we want to have a whole different session on, about how to challenge negative attitudes and beliefs. But I'm going to touch on it briefly today. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize, and it brings me back to one of the first points I made about blind spots, the negative beliefs that they have in their head about what they can and cannot do. And a lot of these are instilled into our minds from childhood and just stay there thinking, I can't do this, I'll be no good at that, and so on. And we have to actually address those and be firstly aware of them, and then think how we're going to deal with them. And one way from a coaching perspective is to just sort of challenge them intellectually. Okay, well, what evidence do you have that you're not very good at this? Or who says, from whose perspective are you not good at this? Or, okay, well, what if the opposite of that was true? What if you were good at this? How would you then be? Looking at things from different perspectives is quite effective. And again, something from NLP is quite useful, is to create a positive state that makes you feel resourceful and energized. So for example, you can use the technique of anchoring, which is, again, we probably need to have a different session on that, but you can, in your mind, you can link a memory to a particular, it can either be a physical thing, something visual, or something, a sound, or something, a feel of touch. Just for example, a particular song may remind you of a particular time in your life. That's a typical anchor. So you can actually go through that process consciously and link a particular external thing to a particular way of feeling. Just in the way that it might be a particular song makes you feel good, you can use that for something else. And therefore, being in that positive state can just simply lead to better outcomes, because you've got more choices and you've got a more positive way of thinking. Another thing is just thinking about what surroundings help you work best. So it might be you like listening to music, or it might be particular weather. Just giving you my own example, I quite like having the window open, having sunlight, and I quite like listening sort of easy listening music. And I found that during the lockdown, I worked quite productively in that way. Just to give an example, there might be other people work differently in different situations. It might also be personalities. So for example, I went skiing in Christmas. We had 2 instructors, and they had slightly different personalities. And one of the ladies was saying that actually she was in one group, but she was thinking, oh, if I'd been in your group, I think I would have gotten better with the instructor, because I just gel better with her personality. So sometimes just might be external things that you can do that can just make that process more enjoyable, so that you get the best out of yourselves. And again, this is tied into the other things. Just shift of perspective, because it's important to ask yourself the right questions. If you're asking yourself, why am I bad at this? Why can't I do this? Your mind is always going to find some sort of answer for that. But the question is, what if you ask yourself, how can I achieve this? You're forcing your mind to think in different ways. And therefore, that's what we're talking about. A shift from can't do to can do thinking can really help you find solutions in situations which you wouldn't normally. So I don't know if you've got any questions or comments on any of the things that I've covered on that slide.
Yeah, I think this type of mentality is really important. The last one that you said is the one that I always focus in. Is like, it's not just challenging why I cannot do this, and I'm gonna find the answer. You cannot do this because of that. It's like more than that. It's like what I need to do, or what needs to happen to me to achieve that, or what I need to improve to achieve that. So it's being aware about the limits, and but at the same time, know or trying to get the answer to actually achieve it. Is this something that a lot of people don't put the energy or the thoughts or the focus on? And okay, they try to understand it's pretty much trying to find the guilty, not the solution, but in a personal way, like, okay, I cannot do that because of this, and they feel comfortable with the answer because it's a true answer, but that is not a limit to be actually to change to a different thing. So I cannot go to visit my parents because they're in Brazil, I'm in the UK, and we have coronavirus. So that's true. But what I can do to be more present with my family, I can start to Zoom sessions, I can call them, I can see and arrange a holiday in 2-3 months time, send gifts, exchange letters, go to like step down even, we could go a step forward through the things that is a Zoom session, or put a step back to be more personal thing, writing letters, a postcards and things like this, just to keep connected in a way that is possible to me. And people just become so because we know that the life nowadays are really fast and we don't have a lot of time to think about things because things is so dynamic, but we get lost with, and then coaching actually help me and I help the clients and things like this to allocate some time to develop the ways and understand in a way, or raise the awareness in a way so they can put the energy in a solution, understanding the problem in order to achieve, instead of just stay in the same point on the comfortable zone, or stay in the point that you're stuck and say, yeah, that's the way it is, and accepting it. Well, I think
just to give another example,
yeah,
just to briefly just elaborate on that. So in terms of my background as a lawyer, the way that you approach, for example, a witness will be different based on whether or not you're acting for them or against them. So if you're cross-examining somebody, you're going to be asking them very closed questions because you're trying to incriminate them or show that they're in the wrong. But if you're dealing with your own client, you're going to be asking them open questions, i.e., how did this happen? What happened here? And I think the type of questions that you use as well is really important. And some people, I think, when they're speaking to themselves in their mind, they don't realize what sort of questions they're asking them. So perhaps just focus on that and just thinking, am I trying to ask yourself open questions that are going to lead to more positive solutions?
Yeah, when it comes to internal communication in a person, I have my belief that it's a topic for a different video. That's the process
that
of
would be
thinking, the process of mind, because a little bit taste here. I believe in our head, we don't use words. We only use the feelings, emotions, projections, or imagination. The thing that come to this belief that I have is like how a deaf person who never heard a sound thinks. And I'm 100% sure that they can think and elaborate things, but they don't use sounds and they don't use images as well because they're open eyes. So they're using straight to the feelings like touch and things like this to elaborate things in their head. So we never use, for sure we can say, oh, I'm thinking right now and I'm using words in my head. So this is a way to rationalize it. But when we're thinking, most of the time, we're not focusing 100% on this. We're not using words. But this is a different topic.
No, it's interesting how our mind works. And again, it's just a way of tapping into that. It's not something we can cover in entirety in one session, but just different ways of looking at things, which will just help people slowly on that process.
Right, and I think we're almost in the end, right? The questions and reflections. What do you think wants to bring up before we finish?
So I mean, I've just got a few open questions just to get people thinking in terms of what new skills would you like to learn? I mean, particularly in lockdown, people have had a chance to really think and reflect about where they're going with their life. They've got a bit more time than they're used to having. So the common things that people often tend to put off would be things like learning a language, starting a business, writing a new book, or starting a new hobby. And it's good to actually see on social media and through my friends that people are starting up new things and new ways of doing things. And I think people should just start thinking about that. And this process will hopefully help them to do it. Just to give you an example, before lockdown, I was part of a book club. We used to meet every sort of 2 months or so and come together to read and discuss a book. And we didn't want to stop doing that due to lockdown. So now we do that same thing over Zoom. And I guess the first session was a bit odd because we're used to being with each other, sharing food and things like that. But like I said, we're gonna next week we're gonna have the next I think it's going to be the second Zoom session. But like I said, at least we haven't given up on that idea. We can still read the book. We can still share our thoughts. Still got our WhatsApp group to talk about it in the interim, and we can still see each other. So what you're doing, or doing something new. And to be honest, a lot of the technology is involved with Zoom and Facebook Live. It's something that I've been putting off in the past, but during this lockdown stage, it's given me a bit more time to think about this and how I can use these skills for my own coaching as well, and just reaching more people. And yeah, another question I would also ask is just think about the things that you've done in the past that could help you achieve that. So just like the example I gave, I mean, if you had to dig out all your old awards and trophies from your cabinet and put them all up, what did you go through to achieve each of those things, and how could you use them in a new situation? I think those are kind of questions I think it would help people to ask themselves. I don't know if there's anything more you want to add, or if you've got any other examples, because I think you've got a lot of coaching experience as well.
Yeah, I think this is, you have like something that is a symbol, or something that reminds you something that you thought that you was like hopeless or with no strength to keep on, and then you as you said, you thrive through it, and it's something that's remarkable. You said about anchor points or anchor objects or anchor music and things like this. It's really good to have something to remind you and like gives you energy to like, okay, I went through that, was difficult, but I could. Now I'm feeling that it's difficult. I'm looks like hopeless. It looks like I'm gonna fail. But it's the same feeling that I thrived, and I will use this energy again to just keep going and see what's the results. And as you said as well, like learn from it. Like sometimes you're just okay. I'm in a panic zone. Sometimes it's not always going to be a huge success and everything. It's going to be sometimes you're going to just like fail and learn. And then with that, what you're going to do? You're going to try it again, or you're going to just stop there and be with the failure and the learning, and that's it, or not even take the learning, just be with the fail. It's a little bit of the mindset that you told, and things like this. Because sometimes you cannot achieve exactly the goal that you get it, like you with the candle. So okay, you had 3 battles, three fights, and then the guys saw it, say, okay, this guy makes something that is remarkable. Like he went through in the first time for 3 in a row because of the lucky that he was.
I think it was more than luck.
Yeah. But yeah, that's amazing. Let me just get out of the presentation here.
Sure.
And go back.
Yeah, I think another important lesson I think I've learned also from self-development. One thing I learned is that learn to enjoy the process of the learning rather than the object of the learning.
Yeah, this feeling that the child have, I think is really important as well.
I think one of the problems is this is about education. For example, when we go through primary school, we're taught in a particular way just to enjoy things, use a lot of color, draw whatever you want, be creative. But once we move into secondary school, the process, I think it's changing now, but process is more about getting through exams, getting grades, and therefore people stop enjoying the process of learning, and they just have that mindset saying, look, I want to get this degree so I can get a good job, or I need this qualification so I can do this. And I think if you learn to enjoy the process, then you're going to go further. Just to give another example, like I quite enjoy learning languages. So at the moment, like I'm learning French, Spanish, and Arabic, but my French is a lot more advanced than the other 2. And I think part of the reason is that when I was studying at school, we did our, I'm not sure what the equivalent is, but we, the GCSEs, the top set, we did the French GCSE exam a year early, because our teacher said, look, this is very simplistic, and I don't want you to spend 2 years doing this simplistic stuff that we could knock out in a year. So we did the GCSE exam within 1 year. We all got like really good grades, and the next year we didn't have an exam. We just did whatever we wanted. So he would come into the class and say, you know what, last night I was thinking, what should I prepare for the class? And I was reading an interesting article in the Times, and I thought, yeah, well, put it into French. And he just come up with topics like that, and we learned a lot of really interesting things. Firstly, about culture, a variety of different topics, and using the French language in enjoyable, creative ways. And I think that's when I really developed my passion for French, because there was no exam at the end of that year. and I really enjoyed it. And it would be nice if we could have that sort of approach for other things as well, where you just be creative and learn something just for the sake of it. And if you get to that level, you'll enjoy it so much, even if later on you want to do exams. Hopefully those will come very straightforward for you.
Yeah, because you're already downloading the background of your system,
Yes,
and then you have all the knowledge there, mate. Yeah, I think is the way it works. So if you playful and then learning it, and you're gonna be the process of learning, gonna go to the background. You're gonna settle down better because you're enjoying the process. It's not like, okay, I have to learn this and I have to learn that to do that test, and then what I'm gonna do. You just have some good time, and then the same time learning. I think it's a really good combination. But we are running out of time. Don't want to make this too long. Anything that you want to say before we start to finish up?
No, I think we've covered this topic, but a lot of more interesting points have come out from the discussion. So hopefully we can cover those in future sessions. This month we're going to be focusing on sort of re-entering into the sort of the business arena and easing back from lockdown. So we're going to try and focus on those sort of topics. But yeah, if anybody's got any thoughts or comments, questions, I invite them to sort of put them down. We'll try and respond as soon as possible. And in particular, if there's any things that people would like us to cover in terms of topics, we'll try and prioritize those so that we can really benefit people as much as possible.
Yes.
I mean, I really enjoy doing these. I think you do, and we enjoy working together as well. So yeah, we're looking forward to the next one.
Exactly. As Siddiq put it, it's really, really good to mention. If you have anything that you want us to discuss about, you can write in the comments. Anything that you have to add it from what we said right here today, you can comment below and we're going to answer you. Or different topic that you want us to discuss about and bring a little bit of knowledge to you. That's regarding with coaching or not regarding coaching, like in the process of learning awareness, process of speech, your beliefs and things like this. We can come and bring something if we are able to talk about it. If you're not able to talk about it, something like a medical, psychological thing, we bring someone to talk through, a specialist or someone who have the knowledge from this particular area to bring. So once again, Siddiq, thank you very much to being here with us and sharing this information. As Siddiq mentioned, this month, June, that's just starting now, it's going to be related like how to reapproach to the market. We're going to try to bring few people to say about engaging and the market again, re-engaging the market, or what was the experience when they left the academy or left the university, and try to engage the market, to share this experience with you guys. And that's it. Thank you for watching us for this whole hour. And I hope to see you next Sunday as well. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.